Hi everybody, I'm Michael. Today I'm super excited because I'm going to share with you the Song of India and how you can grow her as a houseplant indoors, or if you live down here in South Florida from zones 9B through 11, you can also grow her outdoors like we have ours out here on our patio. So, you ready to dig in? Let's grow! The Song of India goes by the botanical name Dracaena reflexa variegata, and she is native to the islands in the Indian Ocean, such as Madagascar. She is so exotic looking. Love this plant. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about some of her plant characteristics. So, she grows in this clumping fashion, and indoors she'll grow to about 3 feet over time. But one thing to note, this plant grows slowly, both indoors and outdoors, but she is a slow grower. But she's known for these wonderful whorled leaves off these funky Dr. Seuss-like trunks that wobble over time, and you can see some of the babies here that we're growing. You can see they get this little wonky growth habit, which is such a cool characteristic of this plant. But as you guys, some of you all know from our channel, I love variegated plants so much, and this one, oh, so stunning. Has these dark green with these yellow or chartreuse edges to them, this variegated edges, and it's just so pretty, you all. The leaves are lanceolate shaped, and they're kind of glossy with a waxy feel to them. She can be quite drought tolerant, but she does, believe it or not, like to have regular watering, more or less, and we'll go into that in a minute. But this plant is pretty adaptable. Just think she's so cool. This is grown at my brother-in-law's home in Hollywood, and he has it on the west side. I think he actually took a planted Song of India that we had when we sold her Miami Shores home, and he took cuttings or planted her in the ground and then took cuttings from her and continued to propagate her, and now they have this wonderful tropical hedge forming on their west side of their home. I'll show you a video so you can get an idea of how it looks, and it forms a really cool look. So now that we talked about the plant's characteristics, let's rotate over and talk a little bit more about plant care. On plant care, let's first talk about growing your Song of India indoors as a house plant. So we're going to start with lighting. Your Song of India will want medium to high light. That's going to be around 400 to 1,000 foot candles. She's going to do best with that, but if you give her a little bit more than that, she can get some burnt tips, and I'm going to show you. Here's a leaf that had got too close to an edge under here on my plant shelf on the west side, west facing window here, and this little kiddo got a few scorched leaves from getting some afternoon sunlight, and that can be a problem. So you want to make sure you don't give her any direct light. You can get, like, if the sun's setting and you have a long overhang, if you're on an apartment building, or if you have a patio with a big overhang or a tree, you can get some of that late afternoon sunlight, the 6 o'clock sun or so, but you don't want to get that 3 or 4 o'clock afternoon sun. It will scorch these leaves, and you don't want to do that. Yeah, there's some more branches, some more leaves here that are at the lower end that are just brown. That is normal. That's going to happen as the plant grows. So for lighting, you want to use medium to high light, 400 to 1,000 foot candles, and we have a whole video on that if you'd like to check to know about that, what that means, like how close to a window or how far away. And it's going to be typically about 3 or 4 feet away from a west or a southern window. Now, the next thing I want to talk to you all about is soil. This plant will want a loamy, well-drained mix. And we like this potting mix ratio. We like to use 80% indoor potting mix. We like to use the Miracle Grow brand. And with that, we add 10% worm castings to it and 10% perlite. And the perlite is going to help add some of that extra drainage, but the worm castings, we're going to add some more of those organics to help keep that loamy, make that real loamy mix, because this plant likes a little bit of that extra zhuzh in the soil. And on top of that, we've been doing this and having a lot of success with adding a mycorrhizal. We like the Bigfoot brand. That helps create a nice food web in the soil. so that the roots can uptake nutrients from watering or fertilizer. And we add about a teaspoon to a 3-gallon pot if we're doing that to plant up a pot, so that we get a nice potting mix. And that's a really good loamy mix that drains pretty well. You could put at the bottom of your container some lava rock or leca to keep the water draining out, so they don't get clogged, because these plants over time will send their roots down. And if you're growing in soil, let me talk a little bit about that. We have this mama here grown in soil, and the one outside that I'll talk a little bit about growing outside. Both are grown in soil. But these little kids here are grown in leca. And I want to give it a go, because a lot of people aren't doing this, but this one is done very well. And you can see all these roots just shot out the bottom. So this plant will tend to do that. And in soil, the roots actually kind of look orange-like. And you can also refer to our channel on another video I did with my little sister, where we planted this as a hedge that she wanted to start to screen her neighbor's yard. And you can see that one of these plants tend to get circling roots, which is not typically good for most plants, but this plant tends to want to do it normally, and it will circle around. But you don't want to have that circling root at the bottom of your plant. You want to remove some of those roots or reorganize them if you're going to repot your plant in a new potting soil. They're slow growers, so you don't really need to repot much. You can just let them do their thing and grow. Oh, she's just so pretty. I just can't believe it. So, all right, so we talked about soil, we talked about leca. Now on these guys, I'm going to do another video on propagating the Song of India, so that you guys can learn how to do that. It's really easy. There's several ways you can do it, but we'll go and create a whole video just for that for you. So please consider subscribing to our channel so you don't miss out on those videos. Now that we talked about soil, let's talk about watering. We water ours every 7 to 9 days, but we use a bamboo skewer to check the soil about 2-3 inches down to see that it's not soggy. So when you put this bamboo skewer in there, or you can use your finger, I use the 2-knuckle rule, you can stick your finger down in there. And if you pull it back and you're getting a lot of soil, this doesn't have any soil, so that she's ready to be watered again. Today, yeah, it was about just a little over a week we watered her. So that's a great way to test your plant, because sometimes people, a lot of people overwater their plants, and that's probably one of the biggest takeaways I want to tell folks on caring for houseplants, is not to overwater them. So every 7 to 9 days, but check with a bamboo skewer, or you can, any little wooden stick, or even your finger. Go down, drive down in there a few inches and see if you're getting any moisture on your fingertip, or if you see the bamboo skewer come up and it's got a lot of wet, you see the color change where it's soaked up some water and a lot of soil and grit on the side, then you know it's because it's sticking. That means it's moist, and you can wait a day or so for watering. In the wintertime, you can water a little bit less, every 10 to 12 days, but we've gone throughout the year watering every 7 to 9 days, and she just keeps cooking. Now, for fertilizer, we add a simple 20-20-20 to our watering from April through September. We don't add in fertilizer in the wintertime, but when we're getting more light down here in South Florida, and in the summertime she tends to grow a little bit more, even though she grows pretty slow. The fertilizer helps her with that. If your plant gets more light, say you have one point I want to mention for growing indoors, if you get your plant close but it's not getting direct light, say you're at the 1,000-foot candles, she may get a little bit more variegation, so you may get a little more pop to her look. So just bear in mind with that, that will happen. New growth will still come out most likely green, the chartreuse, but you get a little bit more pop of a stronger variegation if you get her in a higher light range. Now that we've talked, just squeezing everybody, now that we've talked about fertilizer, let's talk about pests. Our baby here did get mealybugs, and they're a pain, as you'll know. We get them on our Hoyas. We have got them on our Hoyas. We haven't in a long time, but they are a pain to get rid of. You can use neem oil to control, but they'll tend to get in these nodes here, and you gotta make sure you look out for them, because that is the one thing I've noticed about this plant. Mealybugs do tend to gravitate towards this plant. She can get scale, but it's mostly mealybugs. Outdoors, now we'll speak to outdoors and growing her. We'll talk a little about mealybugs, but But let's first talk about lighting. You want an area where it gets partial shade or even part sun. She'll do fine. Our brother-in-law has it growing on the west side, and it's getting some of that afternoon sun, but she's adapted to it. So he's got coconuts overhead, so it's kind of blocking some of that. It's kind of filtering some of that sunlight. And they have it watering 3 times a week, and they just have regular garden soil. They didn't really do any big enrichment. They did have a loamy mix similar to the indoor potting mix, but you don't need to use an indoor potting mix there. You can just use an outdoor mix, and they have a sandy soil, so there's no need to add perlite. So you just want a well-drained mix. If you live down south and you have a lot of marl or muck, you want to add some perlite. You want to add something to help allow that drainage so that your plant doesn't sit in soggy water. They don't mind a little bit of water, but they don't want to sit in it. They want that water to drain through. Oh, and on watering, before I go, I want to mention on indoor watering the house plant, water thoroughly all the way around the plant. Don't just water in one spot. When you're watering it every 7 to 9 days in the spring and summer, water thoroughly so that the plant gets water all the way through. On outside, if you're going to water by hand, you just want to water as needed, because these plants can be drought tolerant. They're pretty tough. These waxy leaves allow it to hold water in its stem and roots and not demand a lot of water. But it's still going to be a little slow grower outside. But you can add a 20/20 fertilizer. Probably I would do more like an Osmocote, slow release, whatever, just even numbers all the way across on the NPK to just give her a little bit of extra energy to pump out some more leaves and growth for you. On trimming outside, you really don't have to do much. Occasionally you can trim her to try to grow her in, or she's trying to spread out, but she tends to grow almost columnar sometimes. But because she has this Dr. Seuss type growth habit, she may bend and twist a little bit. And you do want to make sure you don't grow her more north than 9B, because like coastal 9B, she'll do fine. But if you get in 9B central Florida and stuff like that, the cold may be a problem for you, and she may not do so well for you. So with that, I think we touched base on all the care needs, both indoor and outdoor. But regardless, what we're going to do now is we're going to encapsulate all this in written care instructions for you, and so you can get this, take a screenshot so you have it for your plant care needs, and then we'll come back and do a quick summary at the end. Thank you all for stopping by. If you have any thoughts or questions, just leave them in the comments section below, and I'll make sure I get back to you. And until the next video, bye. Bye. Please remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And tell your friends and family. We post videos weekly. Thanks.